For millions of years, a family of animals has evolved and found ways of adapting to the hottest, the coldest, and the highest environments. They are called the camelids. Central Asia's two-humped camels, India to Africa's one-humped dromedaries, and their Southern American cousins with no hump, the llama, the alpaca, the guanaco, and the vicuña are all members of this family. After participating in the rise of many civilizations, these animals were forgotten, but today in many developing societies, humans are rediscovering their benefits and giving them an important role in daily life. For millions of years, the two-humped camel, commonly called the Bactrian camel, veritable colossus of the steppes, helped humans to live, travel, and trade. Today, thanks to its milk, its fur, and its humps, it's still very present and is generating new activities. But who are these camels? How can they survive in harsh conditions? Why is the world rediscovering their qualities? Let's travel to Mongolia, to Kazakhstan, and to China to discover the prince with two humps. Mongolia, in the Gobi Desert. Selmeg is a nature guide, and despite the snow, he knows where to find ancient hidden treasures that testify to the camel's presence here for thousands of years.
We call this area the gallery of petroglyphs. The scientists say that the petroglyphs around here is around like 4,000 or 5,000 years old. And you can see two people riding a camel, which is, they've already domesticated the wild camels. You can see their culture, the people who used to live around here. There's the ancient Silk Road, which is called another like Tea Road, is around here. It is 40 kilometers far from here.
When humans domesticated the camel, it became indispensable. The Silk Road and the Tea Road, linking eastern China with Europe, were traveled by caravans counting up to 1,000 camels. Traveling through harsh climates and vertiginous landscapes, the camels transported precious jewels, porcelain, lacquerware, spices, glass, coral, and precious metals, carrying the goods between their humps. In the 14th century, after the fall of the Mongolian Empire, little by little, these caravans disappeared. They were often pillaged by thieves and unable to compete with maritime transport. In Mongolia, camels are still very present. They continue to be an important source of wool, milk, and meat. They're still the best at working during the scorching hot summers and deadly cold winters. But how is the camel able to survive in such extreme conditions? John Hare, a former English administrator in Nigeria, became an explorer. He's passionate about the camel, using them to travel the Silk Road. He has stopped here in the Gobi Desert. He is an expert on camels.
Over the centuries, over the millennia, it has developed a means of feeding itself when the conditions are very severe, and that's the hump. A lot of people still think that the hump contains water, but that's not true. The hump contains fat. Even if you take camels working, carrying loads in a caravan, they can go for 12 to 13, 14 days without water, if they have to. But they have to eat every day, if they're carrying loads. The lip is also a peculiar sort of cut there, and that enables it feeding and also trying to get hold of things that are very difficult to feed, especially rough material in the desert, and then this lip can open and something can pull in near the teeth. The eyelashes are very long. That's to prevent the sand getting into their eyes. They can shut their eyes, and these long lashes act as a filter for the sand too. They also are able to protect inhaling sand blown by the wind. They are able to close their nostrils at will, which you try and do it yourself and you won't be able to. Oh, with your fingers, yes, but I mean, come on, do it you can't. And a camel can do that. So that's another amazing characteristic. Their feet are remarkable. Pads, it's a spongy, and that's enabling it to walk on soft surfaces of sand. The Bactrian camel grows tremendous amount of wool hair to protect it in the very cold minus 40 degrees in the winter. I think they got 66 pounds. That's a lot. That's a hell of a lot because wool doesn't weigh very much, as you understand.
All of these qualities are the indication of a long adaptation to extreme conditions. 45 million years of adapting have not been for nothing, and it all began very far from Mongolia. Canada's Great North. In 2006, 700 miles from the North Pole, a team of paleobiologists, specialists in vertebrate fossils made an astonishing discovery.
What we discovered is the first evidence of a camel living in the high Arctic. It sounds very contradictory in people's minds. They think of camels, they think of hot places, they think of deserts. So it seems very unexpected to think of an animal like that in such a cold place as the Arctic. Part of the challenge of working with this material is that it was very fragmentary. So we had two lines of evidence that we used to determine that it was a camel. The first was that there was some anatomical evidence. The most important evidence was coming from the collagen. So this is kind of like DNA fingerprinting, but we used collagen. So this is fossil biomolecule that was taken from the fossil bone, and we could compare that to a database of modern collagen and could discern that this actually was a camel. Because the bone was so old, we couldn't use radiocarbon dating. It's too old for that. So what we had to do was actually date the sediment that the bone was found associated with. So we dated the sand.
The result was beyond their greatest expectations.
John Goss could determine that the age of the camel was about 3.5 million years old.
When we got the final calculation, it was nighttime. I didn't want to call Natalia about it. I sent an email. For some reason, she was awake, and she got the email, and right away, we both realized that we were relieved, but also excited that now we finally had an age, not only of this very famous deposit in the northernmost part of Canada, but we had an age on the camel.
In 4 years, they reconstitute the puzzle of 30 pieces, all from the same tibia bone, identified as coming from a giant camelid. It was 30% larger than today's camelid. It lived in this region 3.5 million years ago.
At this time, the planet was 2 to 3 degrees warmer than it is today, and the environment in the high Arctic would have been a boreal-type forest, a forest dominated by larch-type trees, and it would have experienced very harsh winter, so winters that with sub-freezing temperatures and a lot of snow. So they would have had to survive long winters, and moreover, because the latitude of the Arctic landmass was already within the Arctic Circle, there would have been 24 hours darkness.
Even if it's exceptional because of the high altitude, this discovery serves to confirm the presence of camelids in North America.
What many people might not realize is that the family Camelidae actually originated in North America. The earliest fossil camels are 45 million years old, and the most well-known one is called Pobretherium. And this animal hardly looked like a camel at all. It in fact was quite small, about the size of a goat, and in fact looked quite like a goat with long legs, but it wouldn't have had horns. After that, the real diversification of camels occurred in the Miocene, so beginning about 25 million years ago. The diversification included animals that ranged in type from things like gazelle-like forms to antelopes, and there was even a giraffe-like camel.
The camelids that remained in North America disappeared 10,000 years ago, probably wiped out by man, but well before, starting about 5 million years ago. Some migrated by the Isthmus of Panama and evolved into small camelids like llamas. Others crossed the Bering Straits towards Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. Dromedaries and the two-humped camels are their descendants. It is here on these Mongolian plains that certain camelids migrating from North America finished their journey. Today, they are all domesticated. Well, almost all. The Gobi Desert, one of the most inhospitable spots on the planet. Science nature wardens regularly travel these routes to monitor the protected Gobi Nature Reserve. Niam Bayar is a zoologist. He's interested in some very rare camels, the planet's last wild camels, those that are most similar to their ancient ancestors. The wild camels are used to living in this environment. They are perfectly acclimated to it. These animals are very resistant. They are the most adapted to living in this zone because they are accustomed to drinking very salty water and eating plants that are poor in nutritional value. Today, threatened by human activity, there are only about 1,000 left. Living in a vast territory between China and Mongolia, they are highly protected. This protection is the specialty of the explorer John Hare. In his effort to save the species, he has fenced in 22 hectares. Wild camels that were captured are kept inside the zone during their reproduction period in order to assure the survival of the species. The rest of the time, the wild camels live together with the Bactrian camels, belonging to the region's herders.
In the winter is when the camels mate. November, December, January. That's the breeding season. And we have to keep them separate. Otherwise, we get hybrids. We get the camels breeding with the domestic camels, and we don't want that, obviously.
Here, our protected wild camels are not just the concern of China and Mongolia. They are the concern of the entire planet. What is important in the mating period project is that we preserve this species. In addition, as we have many of them, people can come observe them and learn more about them.
Me too. It's my dream that there will be more wild camels in the world.
Look over there, I can see more camels coming down to drink. That's a male. The difference, I think you can see very quickly, it's the size of the humps. When they've been in the enclosure, being given good hay, good grass, they'll get big just like the domestic, but you can see some of these older camels have been here for some years and they've still got their small pointed humps. They're very distinctive. You will have known from the domestic Bactrian that when it is tired, the humps flop when they've used up their fat. That never happens with the wild camel. The pointed humps always stays the same.
This struggle is the result of a magical encounter that occurred 20 years ago during an expedition led by Chinese scientists.
In 1995, we traveled with vehicles And I was very tired of being bumped and bumped and bumped and bumped over we weren't on a road at all. We were just going across very rough Gobi desert. I said, I'm sorry, I've had enough. I'm going to get out and walk. I didn't have any particular direction. I just walked. And then we went round the corner, and I saw a female camel. And I was amazed because they're very timid animals, and it didn't run away. And then I looked on the ground. It looked as though there was a sack there. And I thought, funny, what's that? And then I realized what I was looking at, a calf that had just been born. It became a very famous picture. It is now the logo of our Wild Camel Protection Foundation. The female camel, the young calf, struggled to its feet. And we have a wonderful picture of the young camel trying to find the teats where the milk is. And at first it goes to the chest, and it goes, and it can't find any milk, and then it sees the human beings, and it gets a bit worried. So then it goes to the proper place, and it finds some milk, and then off they walk together.
Comfortably seated between two humps, John Hare continues his conservation mission. For some time now, science has become interested in the two-humped camel and the beneficial qualities of its milk. Further to the west, the Silk Road passed through Kazakhstan, the largest country in Central Asia. Almaty, the ancient capital, is the entryway to the steppes and the grazing ground for 200,000 camels, 1/4 of the planet's camel population. The Frenchman Bernard Fay, a veterinarian specialized in camelids, and Gauhar Ganasbayeva, a Kazakh biochemist very interested in Bactrian camels, are camelologists. According to Bernard Fay, thanks to its qualities, the camel has a bright future before it in the modern world.
I'd say that today the question of raising camels is no longer linked to nomadism. It's more a question of how to enter into modernization. To enter into modernization, maybe it would be preferable to stop with the practice of permanent mobility. We should enter into a system based on intensified production. Camels can satisfy people's demands for milk and meat, and that could fit into a system of intensified production. Camels are multifunction, meaning they can be used for transportation, for wool, for meat, for their milk, and for leisure. No other animal species has so many useful functions at the same time. It's said that every part of the pig is edible. In the camel, everything is useful. It depends on the system of production, according to the country, and that is why the species is so interesting.
Look at that beautiful sunset over the steppe.
Atalar kayda ölmez ay, ak süt yemep ösürtken analar kayda ölmez ay.
The objective of their mission in southern Kazakhstan is to work on the most emblematic and mysterious part of the camel, its hump. The hump is filled with fat and acts as the camel's energy reserve.
Today we're going to Shula Kurgan to research the impact of pollution on the animals. How do the animals adapt to the pollution? What is its impact? The pollutants attach themselves to the animal's lipids. And the camel's advantage is that fats are stored in the hump, and this organ also regulates contamination.
In regions exposed to multiple forms of pollution, the fat in the hump can have an interesting function. It can filter fertilizer and pesticides used in agriculture and protect the milk and the meat. But it's not easy to harvest the camel's fat. You need a rancher, a herd, and camel boys who master techniques worthy of a rodeo.
That one's hump is good. Getting a sample should be easy. We'll wait 5 minutes for it to calm down. It doesn't hurt at all. The hump doesn't have many nerves or blood vessels. It doesn't hurt, but the animals are nervous, so they need a tranquilizer.
Okay. It's enough? Okay.
In camelids, the hump represents about 75% of the animal's fat reserve. It's important to know how it manages its reserve, because this is a big part of the explanation of how it can survive in difficult conditions, where there are few food resources, where it's very hot, very dry, and where it becomes very cold for these Bactrian camels. So all of the research that helps better understand the hump's mechanisms, the animal's metabolism, are interesting for better understanding camels' adapting mechanisms.
From my childhood, I live in South Kazakhstan Oblast, Sozak region. This region is the most camel breeding region in South Kazakhstan. 70% of camel breeding is here. And here, this farm, they use the camel for milking. In the winter, maybe for meat and milk.
Thanks to the filtering process of the humps, meat and milk may be more healthy in camels than in sheep and cows. The camel is a milk-producing animal like cows and sheep and goats. A camel can produce 15 liters of milk a day, and it has a nice flavor. It's slightly salty, or a little sweet, depending on the pastures. Thanks to its lactose composition, it's easier to digest than cow's milk. It's very rich in vitamin C, in iron, and in omega-3 and 6.
When you don't have mother's milk, you can feed camel's milk to your baby. The fact that it has no beta-lactoglobulin whey protein means it's non-allergenic. The child can drink it safely.
Fermented milks are very popular here, and fermented camel milk is called Shubat. It is prepared much like yogurt. That's our Shubat. We prepare it each day. What we don't drink, we sell at the market. We drink a lot, about 2 liters per person every day. To make our Shubat, I use yesterday's Shubat and I mix it with today's fresh milk. Then I let it ferment. It's very good for digestion, especially for the intestines. The lactic acid bacteria do their job, and the new Shubat is ready in just a few hours. It can be kept in the home for a few days, or it can keep in the refrigerator for 2 weeks. It's a drink, an energy food, and it's said to have therapeutic benefits.
The Shubat is very good. Where do you sell it?
At the market, and in cafeterias, and in restaurants.
We know from our ancestors that drinking Shubat is healthy and good for fighting different ailments. Gastroenterologists say that it's good for stomach and intestinal problems. It's good for us because the fermentation occurs due to the microorganisms that are probiotic. And they are healthy for our digestive system. But we have no proof that it's good at fighting any other diseases.
But today this artisanal production is no longer adapted to the demands of the market. It's dependent on the uncertain availability and quality of the variable fermentation starters. To overcome this problem, a company in the Almaty suburb has launched into the adventure and created a production unit to expand output.
Our objective is to create a fermentation starter for camel milk to help the farmers produce Shubat more quickly. Secondly, our starters will allow production of a consistently quality product, homogeneous, without any danger to health, because camel milk is fermented by known selected organisms. This project is financed by the World Bank, the Education Ministry, and the Kazakh Science Institute. Their financing allows us to buy the machines that we couldn't afford, that were too expensive. There is the bioreactor for creating the microorganism cultures, the freeze-drying machine, and the packaging machine. Several countries are interested in our starters and ready to buy them.
Armed with their healthy cultures, fermented camel milk could take over the world. But there are other ways to conquer the world, and China knows just what to do. The Chinese province Alashan, in what's called Inner Mongolia, is located at the starting point of the ancient Silk Road. The Guangzong temples sit above the Tengar Desert, a vast 13,000 square mile stretch of sand, home to thousands of camels. On the border of the desert, Alashan is a relatively modern city of 200,000 inhabitants. Nomadism no longer exists here. Urbanized society has taken its place. But the situation of this city, its location along the Silk and Tea roads, make tradition very strong here. And the camel is the symbol of this tradition. And Mr. Li Shishan has built his fortune on that, a success founded on camel hair. Due to the expanding desert and to mechanized transportation, the camel population shrank here from 250,000 in the 80s to 60,000 today. But that number has been going up for the past 10 years.
When I was a boy, I lived here, and there was much vegetation then. Because of global warming, that's no longer true. That's why we bought these lands, to create an environmental project. Now, 7 or 8 years later, you can see the plants growing again.
This is the Saxol plant, the miracle plant in Central Asia. Its reintroduction is essential for feeding the camel population. And because they only eat the upper portion of the plant, this allows for deeper root growth, which stabilizes all the plants that are subjected to the windy conditions. Camels are very useful in terms of eco-development and the fight against desertification.
All around, for many miles, the desert is well adapted for the camels. Here their hair quality is very good because they eat healthy plants. We have about 12,000 camels in this zone, and each year we harvest about 10 tons of camel hair for our factory. After its treatment, we sell it in China and export it.
Wang Wenbing and Li Jishua are 2 herders among the 400 that work with Mr. Li. During 2 months of the year, they leave the city to cut their animals' hair. My grandparents already raised camels. It's more than a tradition that we transmit. It's our passion. Our family owns 150 camels.
The camels are a bit like our children, especially the calves. We really love them. Every day during the cutting season, we fill up the trough and they come drink from it. When they have drunk, and before they go back into the desert, we cut and collect their hair.
We cut their hair from the end of April to the end of May. If we don't get it in time, it falls out, and that's our loss. The hair on their stomach is the best. We cut the long hairs with scissors. The shorter ones closer to the body need a comb. For Wang and Li, it's an important day. Mr. Li has come to visit, and it's not a courtesy call.
This time we've come to your home to check the quality of the camel hair. With the government's help, my company encourages herders, and we will soon create a herders association. How old is she? Is she aggressive?
She just gave birth. She's the mother of that calf.
This is where the hair is the softest. The hair from here is very good. The color is good, and the fibers are long and fine. The long fibers can be either thin or thick. When we treat them, we separate the thin and the thick, and we only keep the thin.
And the neck hair, it's good too?
The neck hair is quite fine, but it's not long enough. The belly hair, like these, are the correct length. You can see it when you pull the fibers. You see, there's a future in camel herding. As your farm already has a sufficient number of animals, at least 150, your children will want to continue raising camels. If you make $3,000 a year, they won't be interested. But if you make $30,000 a year, that changes everything. Today you have a good base. You have quantity and quality. This is such a white color. It's like cashmere. It's rare to find camel hair like this.
The entire harvest is taken to his factory in Alashan. The hair is separated by size, color, and fineness. Then there's the process of washing, drying, and sorting.
Wool and camel hair are two different things. On the one hand, we have wool. On the other, a finer hair. Their structures are different. The sheep's wool is wool fiber. The camel hair fiber is more profiled, covered by scales. The wool fiber measures about 23 microns. The camel hair has about the best fiber in the world. It can measure less than 17.5 microns. That's the difference.
Jackets, pants, scarves, blankets, quilts. Mr. Li's company stresses their product's natural qualities. 100% camel hair.
Camel hair has a nice feel to it. It keeps in the warm and isolates from humidity. It's less expensive than sheep's wool, and it's warmer. It's more accessible because it's less expensive. Camel hair's structure is tubular. It is empty inside, and the outer wall is covered with tiny scales, which makes it very warm. No matter what climate you're in, even very rainy, camel hair keeps you dry.
Mr. Lee is targeting the international market. He already exports to Germany and Italy, but he wants to expand to the rest of Europe and the USA. Alashan camel hair has a bright future. While China develops in new technologies, Mongolia is reconnecting with traditional practices. Back in Mongolia with Selmeg, our nature guide, he and his family are engaged in helping to develop the southern Gobi. In this region, after its great caravan era, as people settled down and modern machines arrived, the camel population fell drastically. In 1990, only 200,000 camels were left in Mongolia. Something had to be done.
In 1997, my dad decided to organize Camel Festival. The main goal was just to get attention of herders on camels. And after that, the camels' number started to increase suddenly, just because of the organizing Camel Festival.
Every year, the festival unites herders from several regions. Salmeg visits the Badarsh family, who will participate in the elegance and training competition, as well as the polo tournament. Their home is heated with camel dung, and they drink camel milk. Aza and his fiancée Miadaga are participating for the first time.
I'm preparing myself for the prettiest couple competition. I'll wear my pretty deal, our traditional dress with a fox skin on my shoulders. I'll decorate my hat with a coral pendant.
In a few magic moments, Miadaga once again becomes a descendant of Genghis Khan.
Ever since globalization arrived, when we wear our traditional costumes, it's to remember how our ancestors lived. It's also a wonderful way to promote Mongolian culture and our traditions all around the globe.
Katna selects among his 100 camels to find the animal best suited for the polo tournament. This camel is my choice. It's one of my best friends. When I ride it, it means a lot to me, and it demands a lot of work. We have to understand each other perfectly. That's the first point for the long voyage, in which you will become in harmony with your animal. Without this communion, you can never train it and use it well. If you become a friend to your camel, he will give you back many good things. For example, if you're trapped out in the freezing winter, he can become your warm blanket and help you survive. I've already lived through such a situation, and my camel saved me. All of the teams are converging on Bulgan, where the festival is held. It all begins with a big parade. Behind the competing towns' banners, the riders and villagers blend together. There will be 2 days of various competitions, and all of that in an average temperature of 0 degrees Fahrenheit. It begins with the most beautiful couple competition, which is judged by a panel of experts. The polo match is held on Bulgan's Great Square. With their orange embroidered jackets and construction helmets, the Khatna team enters the field. The match is played in 2 8-minute periods, and the Khatna team is having a tough time of it.
I guess the only advantage of the other team was teamwork. The legs are a little bit thin but strong. If the camel is a little bit short, they can move fast and move active.
Penalty shots are used to decide a no-score match. The winners are thrilled, and though the Khatna team lost round 1, they can admire the prowess of the best players. We lost, and that's our fault. We didn't understand each other. We played negligently. We were too nervous and unable to play as a team. The next big competition, which takes us back to the time of the caravans, consists of a series of tests, from riding to the loading of several camels. 5 teams compete.
Mongolian cultural traditions are coming back, and the accessories for camel transport are used once again. Before the festival was started, they were impossible to find, but now all of the families have the gear to transport their loads.
After 2 days of competition, it's time to give out the prizes. Like imperial marshals, the camels wear their medals proudly, and the winners are baptized with camel milk. Long live the citizens of Bulgan! Mia Daga and Aza won the prize for the most beautiful couple.
We will certainly go on to compete in the national prettiest couple in Mongolia competition, as we won here.
And what will you do then?
We will surely live together and raise our camels, our sheep, and other animals.
There's no doubt they'll certainly have handsome children. Richer with their trophies and dreaming of future victories, the young Mongols take the ancient Silk Road home, and the Bactrian camels proudly perpetuate the glory of long past times.
Arvana temeni ben, açana tekşüm ben, açurun hissedi ben, amaraga termin belvi, uzanna undur ben, unana zauh belvi, ultulvi yav çıkılar, çimine zauh belvi, harrına temeni ben, Hammana tekşüm ben, harmana hissede ben, hongara çimin velvi, harmana hissede ben, hongara çimin velvi.